Is Russia continuing its march across the Eastern Front? But does Ukraine have a plan in the works to put 500,000 new troops in uniform? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's December 20th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first, taking a look at the control map. Biggest change here is outside Novomykhailivka, and I don't mean to brag, but I often get things right. I assume you guys tune in to hear me deliver facts. And like we talked about, the Russian forces have sort of established a protocol that we've noticed is that they occupy some of these commanding heights or surrounding areas of a village to establish really secure support by fire positions before pushing into the village itself. And you can imagine if you were a Russian trooper who had to assault into these city blocks, well, you would want to have friendly forces all along the side with, guns, crew-served weapons, mortars pointing directly in this direction, right? So this way, when you attack, you are effectively flanking even though to the Russian forces here, it's a frontal assault. But there's this whole line of support they've got all along Novomykhailivka. So I think you may see Russia try to expand out, get to the edge of this village here. But generally, from what we've seen, this is probably sufficient for Russia. You can see this is the last, this is a good strong point, these buildings here. Especially given that they run up against a small canal. It's a great defensive position. And if these are elevated, they may actually be a great overwatch for the village itself. Now, what are the odds these things are actually still intact? Probably not that great. But the important thing to note is, again, that this is preparatory to take the village of Novomykhailivka, which we're likely to see start to occur in the next, I'm going to say 72 hours. Other than that, elsewhere on the front line, you're not seeing a ton of changes, just some minor tweaks in where people are attacking specifically. But when we look over at the combat map, you can see a slight decrease in the total number of offensive actions, 69 combat engagements, much more evenly spread across the front line than we've seen before. You can see a spread across Avdiivka here, but increasingly you're seeing focuses around Krasnohorivka, and even some in this Marinka type region. Other than that, you see a little bit of offensive work in Bakhmut, but not really correlating to progress by Russian forces. Now, if you're like me, guys, the holiday season is stressful, and you need some energy and focus to figure out what your wife wants for Christmas. That's been my struggle, and I'm running out of time. That's why I invented Strike Gum. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I love this. I'm a firm believer in it. I designed it. I built it. I use it. I wouldn't get it for your wife for Christmas. All right, that's a recipe to sleep on the couch. But if you need energy and focus, cognitive enhancement, and just the ability to go out and get things done, Strike Gum is what you want, right? Compare it to an energy drink, right? I picked up this energy drink, $4 at a gas station, 160 calories, 41 grams of sugar, and all that gets you 114 milligrams of caffeine. And in contrast to Strike Gum, this entire pack, $5.99. Right? Each piece, 5 pieces, each one containing 90 milligrams of caffeine, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC, a powerful nootropic, and 0 sugar, right? So that way you have more calories to set aside for Christmas cookies. Because I'm going to be real. You guys ever had an energy drink that actually tastes good? No, I'd rather have Christmas cookies, right? So what you want to do is check it out at strikegum.com. We've got, of course, a 10% discount if you're military or government, and another 10% if you sign up for the deals newsletter. But if you're a serious energy drink connoisseur, and you're somebody who's going to need a source of caffeine through the new year, especially sugar-free, maybe you're, got some fitness goals, check out the tray. It is 75 pieces of gum, which if you were buying energy drinks is going to run you like $300. This is $69.99. Again, less if you use your discounts. So check it out. And of course, 50% of the proceeds from this first production run are going to be donated to charities that support Ukrainian civilians who've been injured or displaced in the conflict. So strikegum.com. Check it out. Okay, let's talk about Ukraine's solution. Now, the reality is that Ukraine right now is outnumbered about 3-1 on the front line, right? There's about 300,000 Russian troops by most of the reliable metrics that I've seen, and about 100,000 or so Ukrainian troops opposing them on the other side. So the need for Ukraine to bolster the ranks of its armed forces is substantial, but this has been really hard for them, both because of just a disorganized mobilization system, struggles with troops who don't, or able-bodied young men who don't want to serve in the conflict, right? So there's a lot of discussion within Ukraine about how they can solve this problem. Now, Zelensky has some plans, right? He's confident, first off, that the U.S. and EU will provide aid to Ukraine in the near future, which I'll point this out, you can contribute to if you are a U.S. citizen. Write your senator. You can literally punch it into Google, tell them the county that you live in, and it'll spit out your senator and representative, and just send them an email. Just be like, hey, man, I'm a voter. I believe that Ukraine's fighting for its independence. You should support additional aid to Ukraine. You'd be shocked. That stuff actually works, believe it or not. The whole reason senators take all those donations from corporations is so they can buy votes. And if you tell them, I'm a single issue voter, or I support you except for this particular issue, it'll actually weigh in on them, right? So you could definitely do that. But Zelensky's confident that the U.S. and EU will provide aid in the near future. But Ukraine also plans to produce an eye-watering 1 million domestically made drones and ramp up their own production of artillery. But more interesting, Ukrainian General Staff has proposed a plan to mobilize about 500,000 additional military personnel. Now, this is going to come from a variety of sources, but there's a lot of rumors that within Ukrainian society, a lot of able-bodied men have either fled the country, they've just sort of skirted mobilization one way or another. As someone... drafting people is complicated. That's what I'm going to say. And not every commander wants to see unmotivated draftees. But to a certain point, when you're outnumbered 3-1, ginning up an extra 500,000 personnel will make a big difference, even if those personnel aren't necessarily in direct combat. Some of them may be in support roles, which would free up support role volunteers to engage in frontline combat, or simply make those who are engaged in frontline combat more enabled, right? Somebody needs to drive trucks, haul artillery, provide rear area medical care. Those are all military roles that, frankly, could also be filled by these mobilized personnel. Right. Now, Zelensky has said he would not sign a future bill on the mobilization of women, but he may lower the mobilization age to 25. And I think that's significant because there's been a lot of hand-wringing in the media that has talked about the fact the average age of a Ukrainian soldier is like 43. But when you point out the fact that the mobilization age only starts after 25, you understand why Ukrainian troops may skew old. And frankly, there's a little bit of a logic to it. I actually think that, for example, in World War II, the average age of a soldier was 27. And I think that actually was to the military's benefit, right? At the end of the day, a 30-year-old soldier, a 30-year-old private is going to be able to be given on average, a lot more responsibility than an 18-year-old. Think about you at 18 and you at 30, right? 18-year-old Paul, like it was a miracle that I could shower every day and wash my own clothes. 30-year-old Paul balanced his budget, right? 30-year-old Paul contributed to his 401k. Which one of those dudes do you want on the other end of the foxhole? The guy whose 401k has a plan, or the guy who's asking himself, did I wash all my underwear this week? Right? So I actually think that it's not the worst thing in the world to have a mobilization program that skews older. That said, you gotta get there's a reason that a lot of militaries have relied on able-bodied men throughout history. Now, of course, Russian sources have been leaning heavily into these reports about internal Ukrainian political military tension to sow distrust, to make it look like Ukrainian leadership is sort of in disarray. But again, this is a function of Russia not understanding how democracies work. In real democracies, leadership has debates. They publicly debate policy because that enables voters to make informed decisions about who should be in charge of their country. And it's not indicative of an inevitable loss. Look at, for example, Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War. Publicly was extremely contentious with his Congress, with his party, with his cabinet, and still, was able to provide not just effective leadership, but is considered an all-time great among war leaders because he entertained so many different perspectives and ideas, and those ideas really went to bat within his sphere of influence. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you. Thank you so much to our Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com, our Lieutenant tier members. Be sure to hit like and subscribe on the video. Tell the YouTube algorithm that I am making quality content, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.